Boom. We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships.
This is the Couples Academy Show. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Hassani.
And I'm Danielle.
And this is the Couples Academy Show, and it is Friday! You know what that means? It's Relationship Q&A Day.
So
this is
excited.
all about you, where you can ask your question on any topic. I don't care what it may be.
Yes.
Maybe you're single, you're dating, you're engaged, you're in a committed courtship, you're married, you're divorced, you're in the in-between stage, you're dealing with communication issues, sex issues, financial issues, whatever it is. This is the day where you get your question answered. So don't wait, don't delay. Let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's go.
I think by now they know they need to come right in and drop a question. You can say where you're from too. We don't even have to do that on Fridays, right? You can just come and, hey, I'm so-and-so from so-and-so, and my question is, like, your first comment, because guess what, guys? What ends up happening is that by the end of the show, all the questions start coming in, and then you gotta wait another week. So drop those questions. Make sure you come on here, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell, because when you do that, you will never miss a show. And we definitely want this message to spread throughout the world, all right?
All right, guys, listen, we started off sharing a video with you of our Moving Forward program. The reason why we want to do that is because that's the program that you need to be in. Tuning in every single morning is a great opportunity, right? It's a great opportunity to get some great information. But if you want support, if you want community, if you want to take your relationship to the next level, you need to reach out to us. Just set up a discovery call. Go to couplesacademy.org. Let's talk. Let's figure out what we can do about your situation to take things to the next level.
Awesome. Okay, if we're going to jump into questions right away, JG says, can I fall? Oops, it's moving around. Can you open this one? Go ahead and click it.
JG.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
All right.
Can I fall in love with my husband again after multiple infidelities, secrets, and lies?
What say you?
I mean, I say that it's a journey. That's what I say. Absolutely, yes, you can. There was a time, Hassani, you and I talk about it all the time, that the in-love feeling felt gone and gone forever. I would say it all the time. I would say, once the in-love feeling is gone, it is never to be awakened again. But it's absolutely not true. But it takes a lot of hard work and transparency to open up again, right? Once we've been hurt in any kind of way, we start to build these walls. And if there's been multiple infidelities and multiple lies, you have a really big, thick wall all around you. And your spouse has got to do a lot of the heavy lifting to start to pull those rocks down.
Yeah, and my question is your partner still lying, still keeping secrets, still having multiple infidelities? Have they gone through a process of transformation? Are they seeking individual counseling? Are they willing to do couples counseling? Do they pray? Do they have a relationship with God? Are they doing all the necessary things to show themselves, to present themselves as different? Are they still holding on to the same old ways and practices practices and just want you to get over it. See, all of these questions really come into play to answer this particular question. Yes, it's possible, but to Danielle's point, you're going to have some work ahead of you. Now, is it worth the work? Absolutely is worth the work, but you have to know what it takes. So, there's a couple I'm working with right now, and so they think, well, one of them thinks, well, I just made a decision, I'm going to just stop. So it's just that simple. And I'm like, you've been doing this your entire life. And so the struggle that you're having is not in your body, even though you're using your body to do what you do. The struggle you have is in your mind. Mm-hmm. That's where the habits lie, right? That's where that mental shift has to take place, which will then govern how you function.
Going back to that really wonderful example from the other day about the plastic surgeon who would do a lot of plastic surgery on people, making them beautiful, but he found that even after that, they still thought that they were fat, thought that they were ugly, and behaved in that way. Even though he had sucked them thin and done all that, the biggest muscle you have is your brain, right? And so if your brain is unchanged, then essentially you're unchanged. It doesn't matter what you're saying and what you're doing.
Very true.
Can you read the comments?
Yes, I can. So Brandon Snake says, my spouse is against marriage counseling. Is my marriage over if there's no counseling after I was unfaithful? You know what? Here's the deal. We obviously are in the business of counseling because we know the impact of it. We counsel people, we coach people. We know that having a third party to guide you through a process is the most ideal thing you can do. When we were going through and I wasn't interested in counseling, and I'm like, let's just read a book. Let's just watch a video. Let's just, I don't know, hide in the midst of a crowd and just take what we need to take for us. I mean, I won't say that there weren't incremental improvements. There were. I mean, if you're willing to put in that work, you can get change. But the quantum leap came when we did something different, and your wisdom has taken you as far as you can go. And sometimes you need to access the wisdom of others who have knowledge and experience and expertise that you don't have. And I say this all the time. Listen, I have a plethora, you like that word? A plethora of books in my library that represent all types of things, but it takes more than just knowledge. Knowledge is a piece of it. I need to know how to apply that knowledge to my situation.
And what I would add to that is that we don't know the whole story, right? So we don't know how much hurt your spouse has experienced so that they become apathetic, right? Sometimes it's like, I've heard you say you're going to do the right thing. I've heard you say you want to change. Okay, so now you want counseling? I'm done. Like, sometimes people are so far done that counseling isn't going to be the first step for you. And you're going to have to do some of those things like Hassani said. Go get the books and go get the videos and just put them on in front of them like he did with me. When I was like not interested, he just put a CD, or maybe it was a cassette in the tape at the time, right? And
it was a VHS tape.
Maybe it was. And he just started watching it right there in front of me. And I was trying my best to ignore it, but I began to see him making the incremental changes. And I think that's the key. Are you making incremental changes for you? Because if you've hurt me, don't expect me to make those same changes with you at the same time when my walls are up. And I think that makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Listen, we have another great question. And that question is, good morning. My name is Tina from Virginia. Is it important for a married couple to have a joint account, or is it okay to have separate bank accounts? This is a very good question because we talk about the top 5 things that couples struggle with: communication, sex, parenting, in-laws, and finances. Money, money, right? So when it comes to money, you need to have these conversations. Listen, there's a phenomenal book called One Bedroom, One Bank Account. Now, it's not implying that there should only be one bank account.
Please clarify.
There can be
hot right now.
There can be multiple bank accounts. Right. That your spouse has access to. We have a few bank accounts. One bank account is for bills. One bank account is for savings. One bank account is for, whatever it may be for. And she has access to those, and I have access to hers, because what happens when you're in a situation, I'm out of town and we using the same debit card and something's missing, or maybe I use the card and it's over. She needs to be able to log in, transfer my, how is it that I could share my body, but I can't share my bills?
I think that in addition to that, because to your point, multiple bank accounts are necessary for so many reasons. Like, everybody probably needs to have multiple bank accounts so that you can manage your money well. That's the whole point of it, right? But are you joint in heart? Right? Is it that you have a oneness in your state of mind regarding your finances? And I think if you have a oneness, regarding that, then it's just as good as having a joint bank account because I have access to it. I can see it whenever I need to see it. You know, we have communication whenever we're going to spend money. Nobody is going rogue and doing what they want to do and, you know, hiding what they're doing. So I think it's more so about that than necessarily should we have one joint bank account. I think you need to do what makes sense for your world, your business. Business is a big thing. Sometimes you have multiple bank accounts for that reason. But do you have a oneness in heart and mind with your finances? That's important.
There it is. We're talking about financial alignment. Listen, guys, you're watching the Couples Academy show. We have a quick break. We'll be right back. But keep posting your questions. We want to get to them to make sure that you get what you came for this morning. See you in a second. Sign up today for the Better Marriage Club and receive exclusive access to the private Facebook group to get your questions answered and your problems solved. Access to our marriage library of live seminars. Watch the Couples Academy Daily Show. Call the help hotline for laser coaching. Get our weekly action guides and receive a private one-on-one call with one of our marriage coaches. To join the Better Marriage Club, simply text MARRIAGE to 973-490-4668. Join today. Your marriage deserves it. All right, guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy show. We're talking about your questions and giving you answers to those questions. So let's get back into it. We have another question. How can I deal with emotional and mental immaturity? You know, a lot of times people get married and they're not really mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, relationally ready for that relationship. There's a pivot that you have to make. And sometimes people are still operating in, childlike behavior, especially when dealing with their emotional reactions and how they show up. We see this a lot of times when couples are feuding and fighting and, you know, they just have these ways about them. How do you deal with that, Danielle?
Wow, grow. How about that? Why don't you grow? Because I think all of us suffer from emotional immaturity at some point, spiritual immaturity at some point, financial immaturity at some point, parental immaturity at some point, right? And what do you do when you feel that or when you're lacking in a space? You get educated on it. So there are books that you can do. There are courses and classes. There are mentors that you can find, spiritual as well. I think it's about just having a willingness to develop and grow. If you identify that in yourself, that's a really powerful place to be because now you can do something about it. If it's your spouse, it might be a little bit more delicate, but you can initiate growth by bringing in education and doing it together.
There it is. See, if I'm pointing the finger, right? If I'm pointing the finger at you saying you need to get it together, you need to be fixed, you need to grow, then I'm not going to be open to that. Right. But if you say, hey, why don't we read a book? Why don't we work out? Why don't... See, I almost said something, folks. Y'all would have lost respect for me. So I'm gonna tuck that in. No.
Say it, Cletus. Let them know who you really are.
I'm gonna keep it professional for these folks. All right.
All right.
But once these lights go out and this camera goes off, it's on. All right. So, listen. Surrounding yourself or your spouse surrounding him or herself in an environment. I was just talking to somebody about this last night. Listen, peer pressure is real, right? It's not just when you're in high school and you're the peer pressure you face to live up to, but peer pressure is real. So that's why I surround myself by brilliant people. I want to be the dumbest one in the room, the brokest one in the room, the less successful person in the room, the least spiritual person in the room. So there's only one direction I can go, and that's up. And so I would say, well, who are your friends? What environment are you in? That's a huge asset that you can have in terms of making a quantum leap in growth.
Absolutely. So, I got a good question here. I can see now. Okay, Rick Bennett says, how can I get my wife to understand I am asking for forgiveness, not expecting it? Wow. To me, that question in and of itself speaks of maturity because we should not expect forgiveness. And that the reason for that is because if forgiveness for real is someone having to exonerate you from things that you have done, right? So I have to literally acquit you from something that you are guilty of, and that is a journey for that person. And so when the person who desires forgiveness has grown, they no longer expect it, right? They desire it, but they don't expect it, and they get about the business of showing that they deserve it. And so, you know what? It's again more educated, like learning what forgiveness is and being able to articulate that to your spouse, that, you know, and say this to her over and over and over again. Take your time. You know, you have all the time that you need. I can't wait until you are able to forgive me, but I know that it's a journey. People just want to be understood, and they don't want the pressure, because it's hard. Forgiveness is difficult, and it is a very long road.
Yeah, that was a powerful question. And I think it's important for both parties to really study what they struggle with the most. I think the two things that people struggle with are forgiveness and trust building. And I think we attach so many ideas and meanings and definitions to the word that take the true origin of the word away from itself. And so the one who's requesting forgiveness, if it's not connecting and she thinks you're demanding or expecting it, then maybe you want to try a different approach. Maybe it's the way you say what you say. Maybe it's the delivery of it that's off-putting to her. So figure out different ways to approach it. And then, at the same time, maybe there's a struggle for her to be able to forgive, because that's just something she struggles with. So it's to your point, it's a journey that you take together. That's why we talk about the path of true forgiveness and what that looks like, because you have cheat forgiveness, you have the refusal to forgive, you have acceptance, and then you have genuine forgiveness, and they're all uniquely different. And that's why we guide couples through that process when we do these intensives.
Absolutely. Let's jump to Torre Love. Happy anniversary to my wife and I, celebrating 27 years of marriage.
Love it.
Of commenting. 27 years is
that's serious.
Especially in today's day and age. Like, people just calling it quits after 6 months and oftentimes. So 27 years, commending.
Tell us the key to your success. What allowed it to go to 27 years?
Right. Don't
we want to hear from
that,
you.
Right? Let us all know it was hard. Come on. If it was easy, I'm not going to believe you, because 27 years is something. All right, here's another question from Brandon. What's a good thing? What good things I can do while separated from my wife? What are some good things he can do while separated from his wife?
Work on you. So if you're separated from your wife, the first question is, well, what's the plan? Are you separated indefinitely? Are there steps that have already been discussed in terms of how to get back into that house? So I would talk about what that plan is. And if there is a plan, what to do in the waiting period. In the waiting period, to what we just said, seeking personal growth and self-development, possibly working with a counselor or a coach to figure out what your blind spots are, to figure out what it is that you two need to do. I would say date if you can, have work days with your wife that you're separated if you can. You have to have a connection, because if you're separated and you're not communicating and you don't have scheduled time where you see each other, you can separate and grow apart, and it's very difficult to get back together again.
Absolutely. Can we go to Diddy Jones?
Right here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, Diddy Jones. Why is infidelity so prevalent, like a fashion trend? Well, here's the deal. A trend comes in and out.
Right.
It's
true.
just like the trend for the week, the trend for the month, the trend for the year. But infidelity has been around since biblical days, right? It is always hidden in the shadows of a committed relationship or a marriage. Yeah. As long as there's sin, there will always be infidelity.
Okay, drop it bomb.
Just think about it. Just think about it, right? As long as there is sin, there's always going to be hatred and racism and prejudice. Yeah. So nothing changes, right? Because laws don't change education doesn't change it, because at the end of the day, it's a heart issue and it's a sin issue.
Sin ain't going nowhere, right? But what I will say is that I think exposure is probably the biggest issue that we're dealing with right now in this day and age. Exposure. We have exposure through all the social media, right? There's a book out there, it's called The World is Flat, and it talks about how we're no longer, like, our children are no longer competing with their classmates, but they're competing with the world now because of the internet. And so we have access to people on the other side of the planet that we did not have access to. And remember, depending on where you're from, you have different agendas, right? And so you have people, I can't tell you how many times people are sliding into my DMs saying, hey, hi honey, hey, right? I'll never forget a couple years ago, Hassani had somebody trying to hit him up on Facebook, and he had to write this shame letter on Facebook because people are praying after your spouses. They don't care. And so it's the exposure. Now it's like your sin has always been there, to Hassani's point. Sin ain't going nowhere, right? The flesh is weak, right? And now you got all these people coming after you and showing body parts and things. We never had access to all this coming up, right? So that's a huge issue.
I mean, that's a great point.
It's not a trend, but it's a lot easier now than it ever has been before.
That's a great point. The two biggest milestones that have significantly quantum leaped infidelity has been women entering into the workforce, because there was a separation between men and women.
Wow,
right? That's why the work is a hotbed for infidelity. And then social media. There it is.
Work husband.
It's social media, because you have access to people, right? And so those two things have significantly increased infidelity. So listen, at the end of the day, technology isn't evil, right? Technology only makes you a bigger version of what you already are. So if you're trifling, technology will be a major tool for you.
Expose your triflingness.
There it is. If you have integrity, then it's going to be used
I wish you would share that letter again. Some of these people out here need to know how to handle some of these folks sliding in the DMs.
Let's see if we can pull that up. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. Be right back. Post your questions. Let's get it in. We got one more segment to go. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Can we tape things so that...
Sign up today for the Better Marriage Club and receive exclusive access to the private Facebook group to get your questions answered and your problems solved. Access to our marriage library of live seminars. Watch the Couples Academy Daily Show. Call the help hotline for laser coaching. Get our weekly action guides and receive a private one-on-one call with one of our marriage coaches. To join the Better Marriage Club, simply text MARRIAGE to 973-490-4668. Join today. Your marriage deserves it.
Welcome back, guys. You are watching the Couples Academy Show, and Hassani is actually trying to find that he found it. I'm going to turn it over to you. This is a lesson in and of itself.
Yeah, folks. So somebody hit me up on Facebook several times, posting, liking, inboxing me, trying to be persuasive, and I'm like, all right, let me just let this breathe for a second, see where this is going. But they wouldn't stop. They were relentless, so I had to put them on blast. And so basically I posted this on my Instagram and Facebook page, and it simply says, beware, I'm married. If you're using Facebook as a hunting ground to secure companionship or to indulge in secret sexual rendezvous, I am not available prey. My Facebook status, my posts, my videos, my business, my ministry clearly indicates that I'm married. Not just married, but happily married. I don't have room for any more friends, inappropriate conversations, occasional check-ins, pokes, waves, or flirtatious back and forth banter. Keep your pictures, keep your compliments, and most importantly, keep your integrity. That's all you really have. I'm not just a male, I'm a man. A male makes decisions with his penis, and a man makes decisions with his mind. I surround myself with real men to ensure that I live in integrity. This post is not meant to expose the women who have shamelessly pursued through Messenger. Rather, this post is meant to expose me for who I really am. Happily married. Anything and everything that I will ever want or need is found in my wife, Danielle Pettiford. Take a hard look at this picture. There's no me without her. We're a package deal. And if that's something that you're into, the answer is still no. I'm a member of a new sexual revolution, and I'm leading a movement of honest, integral, faithful men and women who choose to honor God's first institution, marriage. Regardless of your past, it's not too late to jump on board this train. It's a one-way ticket on the path to marital fulfillment. Who's joining me?
Sila, drop the knowledge bomb.
See, this is what you have to do, because when you just allow these conversations to happen, because, we seek attention, we love being admired, we love being complimented, and it feeds us, and
oftentimes we might even have a legitimate excuse in our minds, like, well, he doesn't compliment me, she doesn't compliment me, but you start placating into that, and it's a door you can't close. It's just one step in the wrong direction. Once you walk down that path, you find yourself in places that you don't want to be. But what a powerful example to all of you husbands and wives out there that and I know you all experience it, people jumping in there, saying hello, talking to you, complimenting you, telling you you're beautiful, and trying to get into a conversation with you. That's how you respond when you are married. So kudos to you, babe. I love you for that.
Thank you. All right, we got a lot of comments. Here we go. Rhonda from Arizona. How do you get through a marriage when you're trying to change and fix yourself for the happiness of your marriage and your husband, and says that he wants change and happiness but is doing the opposite? That was a lot of happiness and change. Okay, so let me reread that. How do you get through a marriage when you're trying to change and fix yourself for the happiness of your marriage, and your husband says he wants change and happiness but is doing the opposite?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
So basically she's making the changes, it sounds like, but he seems to not be making the change. He wants to change but isn't changing.
This is the challenge, right? Because a lot of times couples, when they come to us, one wants it, one doesn't. One wants it, one's unsure. One's more committed than the other. One's traveling at 50 miles an hour, the other one's at 25 miles an hour, and it's hard to get them on track at the same time. What I will say is it takes one person to initiate a process, and sometimes we push pause, we slow down, we stop when our spouse is not on board. And I would say keep going, because what motivated you may be different than what motivates your partner, and you never know. Joining sessions, being a part of the right community, hearing the right words from the right person, something may click within him, and then boom, now he's on the journey as well. So listen, at the end of the day, that's why we talk about we seek marital recovery, but there's also the individual recovery process. So if you're in a process where you're trying to change and transform your life, there's a healing that you go through, and he needs to get it too. And if he gets on board a little bit later, but he's on board, keep going, because something may shift in him. We see this all the time where couples eventually get in alignment with one another.
Absolutely.
So reach out to us and let's see what we can do for you personally to be a part of your journey.
Yeah, Tori came back and said, it ain't been easy, but by the grace of God, we are still standing. That was they're celebrating their 27th anniversary. Yeah, it ain't easy, and you are standing by the grace of God. And to Hassani's point on that last comment, a lot of people, I forget the statistic, but there was a report that came out that said that a huge amount of divorced people wish that they had pressed through the rough times to come out on the other side, because there is another side, right? Instead, they got divorced, ended up remarrying, and ended up in the same situation with someone new. So we go through tough times. We should not expect not to. It's, do you have the endurance to get through it, dealing with the idiosyncrasies of the person that you love and that you chose, right? That's the journey, because I don't know what layers I'm going to get to the longer we go down the road, right? We change. And if somebody's going to go through something, the person that's been with you the longest is the one that should stick by you if they can. It's really about your endurance, and that comes by the grace of God.
Let's go to Rick. I don't think we read this. Kathy here recently discovered 6 months ago many multiple affairs, upwards of 50 affairs or 50 lies and mistreatments? Okay, from the entire 35-year marriage. Hard to find forgiveness when no true change. That's true. It's hard to forgive someone if they're still doing what they're doing.
Right.
And that's why you really have to embrace acceptance. I mean, we really need to do a deep dive show on acceptance, because it doesn't mean that you're accepting the behavior, you're giving them a pass for what they do. But a lot of times the forgiveness that you give someone is not necessarily for them, because they don't necessarily deserve it if they're still in that lifestyle. You're doing it for you, for your own sanity, for your own healing. And so maybe you need to talk to somebody about what the next move for you should be. For why would you want 35 more years of the same old mess? Doing the same thing will get you the same thing. And if you want something different, then you got to do the opposite of what you've always done. And sometimes you don't have the strength to be able to do it, because you begin to rationalize and justify why you should be in your situation. Yeah. But listen, if your spouse is not changing, guess who has to change?
You do. And after 35 years, I mean, everybody's so comfortable. I mean, that might be the reason why you're still there. You're just comfortable, and change can be scary. And for your partner, change is impossible in some cases. And so I really do think you need to look at what's really going on. And sometimes we got to pull our head up out of that sand and really look at it. If somebody has stabbed you with a dagger, right, and twisted it, and they keep twisting it with new occurrences and new offenses and new hurts, you can't heal. First, you got to take the dagger out, stop the offenses, and then there's a whole process that you have to go through to get to the healing place. But it sounds like you got multiple daggers, and that's a tough place to be. So I would reach out to us and see what we can do to help lead you in the right direction.
One more. What do you find was the biggest challenge when you were going through counseling? It's really simple for me, admitting that I had a problem. Like, some things I could admit to, but there were some blind spots, and it took someone else saying what my spouse had said for me to see and accept it and then begin to make that change.
Yeah, I would say the same. Looking at myself, that was the hardest thing, because I'm like, wait, there's something wrong with me? Oh! I thought I was perfect. I thought I didn't.
She really did.
I'm blessed. I come from a family where my brothers love me to pieces, so they really fooled me. But when I got to the point, when I got to the point where I was desperate for change, then I became willing to look at myself, and that's when real change came.
Guys, have an amazing weekend. You're watching the Couples Academy show. We will see you on Monday morning for another episode. Make sure you enjoy it, and let's talk on Monday. Love you guys.
Bye.
See you soon.